Well, that's sorted that bolt out. There, so that's the wishbone and all the suspension assembly out. Next job is going to be to replace the wheel bearing in that hub, which is the one we've just removed. That one needed doing when I took it off the road, but it never got done. I did the driver's side one, so that one was still waiting, so we'll get that done now. I've got to replace the top mounts on the struts for those adjustable ones over there. I then have some bushes, 2 of them you can see there, the other 2 aren't down here at the second, to put onto the wishbone. And then this whole lot can go together. Right, we've got the hub in the vise here now. So this wheel bearing is the one that's bad. It sounds horrible when it spins. It's also got a bit of play in it. I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean up. So basically you've got to come in here, there's a circlip here you've got to remove, and then the rest of the job is all basically in the press. So I'll move you over there in a second. But to start off, I'll just get this one here out. Right, so we're going to begin here by pressing the centre out the bearing. The only thing is go with a bang. There you have it. So that's your drive hub. Got to slit that outer bearing race there with a grinder later and just pull that one off. Put that to one side for the time being. Just try and gather all these bits and pieces back up. So next step is to actually push the bearing itself out of the hub. It's a bit tricky with these hubs. They're quite difficult to actually mount in the vise in a fashion that supports them, I find, but a bit of patience and you can find this position they'll go in. In a minute the bearing's going to drop out the bottom of the housing. There. So he says. So there's the old bearing, and there's the hub with the bearing removed. Ready to press a new one in. We'll give it a clean up first. So new bearing is in, ready to go in there now. Case of just pressing that in now. The most important thing when you're doing this is to make sure you push it square. If at any point you start pushing it in on the piss, you need to stop and square it up, because if you try pushing it in on the piss, you'll very quickly, well, pinch the living crap out of it and it'll be impossible to deal with, and you'll probably damage the bearing, which you don't want to do. So you want to keep everything as square as you possibly can to start with, and then you shouldn't have too many problems, hopefully. Also note you should always push it by the centre so that you don't damage it. You'll notice that was just starting to go in on the piss a little bit then. Luckily he centred up himself, but you don't want to go putting any more strain than that on it because you will damage it for sure. And when you get to the bottom like that, everything goes a bit solid. I'm just using a couple of 3/4 inch sockets to drive it. There you have the bearing in the housing, so it's just a case of putting the circlip in there now, and then we'll push the wheel hub back on from the other side. Right, so I'm going to put the hub back into the bearings now. So I've got a socket underneath which is the same size as the inside of the bearing, so that's taking the strain underside the bearing. I'm just going to press down straight in the centre of the hub. Again, same as when you're doing the bearing where you just saw it kick straight then. It's critical that it's all square and parallel. The last thing you want to do is try and push it in on the piss because you will fuck it up. You can see the bearings are free to move. I'm supporting just the underside of the centre of the bearing. I'll press this one all the way in until it bottoms out. There, you just feel it go hard. Of course the bearing is still free to move. If at any point the bearing isn't free to move, something has gone wrong. And there you have it. So that's how you do the front wheel bearing. That's fully in. Right, going to have a go at grinding this side out. We need to make some clearance in the top of the strut tower for these eccentric top mounts, adjustable top mounts I should say, to be able to move their full adjustment stroke. They need to be able to come over here, which is where we've got some steel. So I'm just going to probably grind it out with a die grinder, probably the easiest way of doing that. So just cover the car up best I can. If I'd thought about this, I should have done this before I painted the car, so that I could have painted over it, but there you go. Not everything is such in life. There you go, you can see I've just basically taken out the bare minimum for what I need there, just to get that full travel. Don't even know that I actually going to need the full travel, but I'd like to make it so that I can at least adjust it across all the way. So I've just taken that out with the die grinder so that we can then do that. So we've got this side largely apart now. I'm just about to drop the wishbone off. So we've elongated that top hole, ready for the strut to go in. So what I'll do is I'll get the wishbone off next. Right, so I got one of the front struts in the vise here now, so I'm just changing these over so that I can use the adjustable top mounts. Obviously before I was basically running these on standard 306 bearing based top mounts, completely unadjustable, just as you'd find on any other 306. To be able to use these adjustable ones, I'm having to change the spring cup, so basically I've got this part here from Gaz, which sits on top and allows the spring to seat around the outside, whereby this can then ride on the bottom of the adjustable mount instead of the standard one. It's quite different in design. So basically that piece goes on first, then I've actually separated the two halves of this. The other part's actually on the car because I had to trim it. So this part goes on next. You've got to insert these pieces in the top there first. So there's a small piece that sits in the bottom of the unit, like so. That then sits on top, and you then secure it with this deep sunk in or countersunk nut, which tightens on the top just as the original nut. Tighten it right down, and then you can bolt it to the car. So that's the front end all back together on this side. I've done the other side exactly the same, so I had to just wait for that new braided line. The first one I had was too short, but I didn't notice when it turned up. So I've just put that in. I've actually reused the original steel lines which I was going to replace, but they're literally in perfect condition, so there's no point changing them for the hell of it. So I just put a new fitting on the end of it. Come down to the braided line, clamp that onto the original rubber fittings, and that's all done. Right, rear discs and calipers are back on. Disc and pads are all new. So that's all back together, pretty much ready to put the wheel back on.